Welcome to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch podcast. Join us on our journey as we recap, examine, and critique the series episode by episode from the beginning.
We'll be keeping our podcast spoiler free, so we welcome fans new and old to join us in watching and reflecting on one of our favorite shows.
Currently, we're on season 3.
I'm your host, Jess Sabanko.
And I'm your host, Mia Sobanko.
Now let's get into this week's episode. This week, we're discussing season 3, episode 17, Pre-Witched. It originally aired on March 22nd, 2001, and had 5.19 million viewers.
This episode starts out in the manor, in the bathroom, and Piper and Leo are in the shower together, and she's saying how they finally found a place to be alone, and they start kissing, and then there's a knock at the door, and Phoebe walks in covering her eyes and yelling that she isn't looking, she just needs her lip gloss, and then she starts bumping into things and, goes back out. And then it cuts to Piper's room a little later. Then Prue knocks on the door and just kind of bursts in and is like, hey, you guys. And Piper and Leo are in robes after the shower. And Piper's like, hey, Prue, are you lost? And she's like, no, but my keys are. Have you seen them? And Piper's like, no, have you seen the way out? She's like, I knocked, didn't I? And Piper says, but you didn't wait for an answer. And she apologizes and leaves. And then Leo says, well, we knew what we were getting into. She says, maybe it's time we get out of it. He was like, what do you mean? She says, once upon a time, before we were witchy women, Prue and I shared this amazing apartment in North Beach. But when Grams got sick, we decided to move back to the manor for a while, and we gave up the apartment to friends, and your wife was smart enough to keep in touch with them. They're moving out, and they will give us first shot at taking over the lease. And he's worried about supernatural ramifications of the sisters living apart. And she says, but what about the marital ramifications of living together? I mean, Leo, everything we do is about navigating our charmed lives. When do we get to concentrate on our married lives? And then they kiss, and she asks what the odds are of pulling this off before the next demon attacks.
So first thing here, so funny that they're really trying to create this atmosphere where Piper and Leo just have no privacy anywhere in the house. And also the whole knocking and then not waiting thing totally reminds me of when I lived with my mom, because that's exactly what she would do. Because I'd be like, can you knock if you're going to come in my room? And then she started doing exactly what Prue did there.
Sounds like Caitlin. That's exactly what Caitlin does to me. It sucks. But that is really funny. I like the whole setup they're doing here of making it so difficult for everybody, or for Piper and Leo, and showing that struggle. It works well for me here. I think it's a funny little intro.
Yeah, totally agree.
What does this mean? They're going to be living apart now?
I know, this concept of moving out. Also, the fact that they could just take somebody else's lease. I guess that's how it works there. I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't make very much sense at all. Because it's a
whatever.
lease, you're not the one renting it out.
Yeah, if they were the owners, they could give you first chance at renting it out. But if they're just moving out, the owner gets to decide, not them.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't make any sense. But good try.
Yeah. Also, wait, I had to put in my notes when she's like, when do we get to concentrate on our married lives? I was like, ooh, concentrate. Winky face.
They're concentrating again. Because we know how much concentration it takes.
Can't concentrate in the shower, can't concentrate in their bedroom. It's just, there's no concentration going on.
Zero concentration in this marriage.
So then we cut outside and we see a quarter moon. Then we're inside of an apartment, and there's a woman who's surrounded by candles and kneeling at an altar chanting. The candles start floating around her, and then her cat, who we find out is named Shadow, jumps onto her lap, and the candles go back to the floor, and she kind of pets him, but then tells him to shoo and not to interrupt her during a ritual. So he goes up on the table and she starts again. But then Shadow starts knocking things over, and then he hisses at her. And she's like, no, don't do this. But then he knocks over another bottle and jumps down. And we see this smoke form. And then he morphs from a cat to a man and says, "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" And then this white smoke appears around her and she screams and then like disappears.
So Kitty turned against her.
Yeah.
Shadow is not having it anymore. Interesting
Yeah.
little introduction. I wonder how this is going to play out with this demon cat and like what this means, you know?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm a little bit upset that they're giving like Black Cat being the evil cat because I feel like people like do that to black cats and they're just cute little babies.
I know. My Milo Milo is the cutest, most precious, sweetest cat that I have. He's a scaredy cat.
Yeah, your other cats are much meaner.
They're all really nice. All my cats are really good, but he's just like the most like quiet to himself cat and the
He's also the most
lovey-doveyest.
like affectionate one because like
Yeah.
Luna does not like to be pet.
Yeah, she does a little more now, but yeah, I don't know why she never really cared for it. Nova kind of just does her own thing, and Cosmo's pretty lovey-dovey. The boys are pretty lovey-dovey. Whatever, that's besides the point. Don't get me started on my cats because I could talk about kitties all day. I love them.
But yeah, something very interesting going on there, and I kind of wonder how that one's gonna play out.
Yes, me too. So, RIP to this witch, I assume, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going with this.
Yeah, me too.
So, then we have the theme song, and then we go to the manor again, and we're in the kitchen during the morning time, and everyone's sitting at the table. There's a bunch of stuff on the table. They're passing pieces of newspaper and cereal around and all of this, and Piper just kind of has her hands folded and is looking around at all the chaos and just randomly is like, Leo and I are moving. And everybody like pauses and puts their pages down and is like shocked. And Piper's like, look, we all knew this would happen sooner or later. It's just sooner. Well, actually, it's later because I've been married for weeks and we're still living in a bedroom with the wallpaper I picked out when I was 9. Not to mention the bathroom sharing and the family breakfast. And Prue's like, and the whole saving the world on a weekly basis thing. I mean, Piper, we don't live here just for sentimental value. We live here because we're the strongest here. And Leo says that there have been times when they handled things without Piper. And Piper's like, yeah, like when I went to Hawaii or when I went away with Leo and everything was fine. Bruce says that it wasn't fine and that they need to be a trio. And then Leo says that they wouldn't be far. Piper's like, just far enough so I could have my own life, our own life. We can't live together forever. And Prue's like, and we also can't ignore the responsibility that we inherited from our family. And she's like, well, you guys have to try to understand. I have 2 families now. And then she points out how Phoebe moved to New York, and Phoebe's like, that doesn't count. That was before the whole destiny thing kicked in. We didn't even get our powers until 6 months after Grams died. And then she asked what Grams would think of her moving out. So I love the way that it was all blurted out, even though I've never once ever seen them eat at the table or have breakfast together. Um, I think that it's really, really nice, really funny. Yeah, but I see kind of both points, I feel like, in this. I think everyone does, even the
Yeah,
sisters.
definitely. I mean, there's this idea, of course, that them being together is important to like their witchness and all of that. But also, I mean, like Piper saying, her and Leo are married now, like this changes the dynamic. So it makes sense that they would want to move out and not want to live in the same bedroom she's lived in her entire life. And the way, she kind of fights against when they bring up other times. Though, again, when Piper says things like, when I went to Hawaii or went away with Leo, they were kind of freaking out when you were away with Leo.
Yeah, and when she was in Hawaii, there was still a demon that they had to figure out, you know?
Yes. And of course, bringing up the whole Phoebe of it all, Phoebe moving to New York, which I'm going to have some questions about when we find out more about that in the flashbacks of this episode. But like, totally makes sense that, of course, that's not a comparable thing because she went to New York long before they were witches and before they had this magical destiny that really tied them together.
Exactly. It adds up for, you know, her to have gone there versus Piper to be going now. You know, she can't really use that against her.
Yeah. So, one thing this episode does a lot of is kind of like where it cuts from something happening in one scene to a continuation of it in the next scene. So that scene ended with her asking what Grams would think of her moving out. And then we cut to Grams walking in the kitchen in a flashback saying, morons. She's like, why does that prepubescent have to throw our paper in the shrubbery? And we see Prue has short hair and she's on a call talking about her wedding to Roger. And then Piper walks in with bangs and yells at Grams making coffee because the doctor said she wasn't allowed to have caffeine. Then Prue on the phone is like, that would be my sister yelling. It will be a lot easier when I move out. Then Prue gets off the phone and Graham says, it's so nice to have the two of you in the same place. It's a rarity. And she pulls out a new camera and says she wants to take a picture of them. And Piper asks Prue if she's moving out, and they start arguing and totally ignoring Grams, who just wants to take a picture of them. And then Grams like gasps, and they both run over to her and tell her to take it easy. But the doorbell rings, and Grams goes to get it.
I love that this whole episode we're gonna be doing a bunch of back and forth flashbacks. Like, it makes me so happy that we get to see their past and kind of before Grams died and how they all came to be, you know?
Yeah.
And like the wigs are kind of hilarious. Them having to go back and look like their old selves, but they did a pretty good job, I'd say.
Yeah, they are looking pretty season 1 here, so
Yeah,
it's working.
definitely.
I will say, gross reminder of Roger. I'd like to forget about him forever.
I know, that's horrendous. And later in the episode, like Phoebe's gonna say something, or one of them. No, I'm sorry, Piper's gonna say something about how Prue found this great guy, and you sure about that?
But also, when Grams is saying it's nice to have the two of them in the same place, weren't they living together even when they weren't
Yeah.
at the manor? So why is that rare?
Maybe she means because they're all always on the go or something.
Maybe, because I feel like there was never an issue with like Prue and Piper not being close to our knowledge.
Yeah, no, I don't think that that's an issue at all.
And I love seeing, all the freaked outness of Piper and both of them like being so attentive to Grams because obviously, Grams' health is the reason they're back in the manor together.
Right, exactly. And as soon as every time we're gonna notice, as soon as like something happens with Grams, like everybody stops what they're doing and goes over to her to make sure she's okay, and it's like really sweet, it feels very realistic to me.
Yeah, because no matter what like their little sisterly like fights are, obviously like they care about Grams and her health. So
Right, she's takes priority.
yes.
So still in the flashback, we're in the entryway, and it's Phoebe with her short hair at the door, and the cops holding on to her. And Grams looks at them, and then Piper and Prue stand a few feet back. And Phoebe's like, oh, you guys didn't have to get out of bed for little old me. And the cops tell her that she was caught shoplifting, but the store isn't pressing charges. And Grams asks Phoebe how she could behave so recklessly and says, what about your destiny, your future? And she says, well, maybe my future plans don't match up to the ones that you mapped out. And she gives the shoes back to the cops that she, for some reason, was still wearing.
Yeah, so why the hell was she wearing the shoes? Very weird, very confusing.
Yeah, that makes no sense. You would think the store would have taken them back. I don't know, it doesn't quite add up.
No,
I love
literally. And
seeing,
like,
like,
what happened to the shoes she was already wearing? Like, did she go to the store barefoot? Like, I'm so confused.
I know, that whole situation makes no sense.
But whatever.
Yeah. And short-haired Phoebe, I love it. We get to see her more dangerous side that we've like seen such a change from, the kind of immature young child that she was and how she used to be. And like it's so funny to see her like think about the way we see her now. She's like
Yeah.
so much more grown,
The one thing that's like a little like questionable to me, like, I feel like, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like shoplifting is such a like teenager thing. Like, why is Phoebe doing that at like 21? It just feels weird to me.
Yeah, I know. It's a little odd.
Like, I feel like there were so many like little things she could have gotten in trouble for that would make sense for someone in their early 20s to be getting in trouble for, as
Yeah.
opposed to like stealing shoes.
Yeah, I agree. But this show, they got to do a lot that doesn't make sense. There's a lot
True.
that
And
doesn't quite add up in this episode.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions that'll keep coming up as the episode goes on. But,
Yeah.
Graham's, talking about her destiny and Phoebe just kind of like
Brushing
not
it off.
interested. Makes sense for where her character is at this point.
Yeah. And poor Graham's foreshadowing what's, to come because she knows and they don't.
Yeah, exactly. So then we cut to a store and we're back to the present day. And Phoebe hands a box of shoes to a worker and says, they're just out of my price range. And he's like, but they're, and she's like, perfect, I know. And then she hands him some other ones and he goes. Then she picks up another and asks to see it as Shadow walks up and grabs it too. And he smiles at her with like red glowing eyes and is like, those are so last season. She goes to punch him and he blocks her. Then she like flips away and he floats her in the air and she asks who he stole that power from. She kicks him across the room and throws a spiked shoe at his head and he explodes into like these black particles and vanquishes.
Interesting. So, bye, Shadow. It
Yeah.
was nice seeing
RIP.
you. Yeah. For 5 minutes. I feel that it was a little public. Like, the guy had to have seen that, right? Like, how did Phoebe get out of this one?
Yeah. Like so, so, so questionable.
Yeah, I know. They get been doing that a lot lately. Just publicly using magic and
Like,
nobody
I feel
notices,
like
I guess.
prior to this point, when they would publicly use magic, usually time was frozen. But like lately, they've just been like not giving a fuck at all and doing it.
Not caring. Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, not my place to judge.
True. I mean, I guess who cares about exposure?
But aside from that, it just seems like this whole store thing was a little bit pushing the plot, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, kind of giving us our, I mean, small spoiler, but our intro to our demon of the episode, which is
Exactly.
Shadow.
So now we are at this packing store, and Piper and Leo walk out with a lot of boxes and bubble wrap. And she thinks that they may have gotten too much, but he's like, no, you have a lot of boxes, or I mean, a lot of stuff. And she's upset that her sisters are upset. And Leo says that they just need some time to get used to the idea. She's like, well, moving out is a big deal for me, too. I could use some support right now. And then Shadow approaches her and makes her float in the air, dropping all the boxes. And she freezes everything and falls to the ground. And then Shadow fights through the freeze and Leo unfreezes. And he throws her a box cutter and she stabs him with it when he moves towards her. And then he vanquishes again. And Leo walks over and asks if she's okay. So this whole big move thing is stressing me out. It's happening really quickly.
I know.
I mean, also it doesn't work like that where like just the next day you're able to move in and have it ready usually. Like I feel like they decided this awfully quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's moving pretty quickly, but I don't know. Sometimes it happens really fast, sometimes it happens really slow. Like
Right.
um when was moving the first time, it was literally like a week between when we went to look at the apartment and when he moved in. But then like when I was moving, it took me like months to find a place. So,
Yeah. I guess that's true. That's crazy though. It seems really quick though to me.
definitely very quick.
But now we know Shadow didn't actually die and there's some purpose for him coming back and continuing to want to get vanquished.
Yes. So then we're in another flashback and we're outside the manor. And Phoebe's like, I'm fine, whatever. And Grams is like directing them together for a photo. And she's talking about Phoebe's good side. And Piper says that she doesn't have one today. And then Prue asks Phoebe who her plans are with. And Prue says that Roger said that Phoebe called him yesterday. And she's like, yeah, looking for you, Prue. I'm not going to defend myself when I didn't do anything wrong. Just trying to be nice to the guy considering he's going to be part of this family soon. I'm not even sure I want to be part of this family. And Grams tells them all to move down a step because the lighting is changing. Phoebe says that why would she waste her time on a wimp who's got mother issues? And Prue doesn't trust her. She says, you don't even know the difference between what belongs to you and what belongs to Macy's. Then Gramps gasps again, and they all go over and tell her to take shallow breaths. And Prue asks if she should call the doctor. And Graham says, no, no doctor, just a picture. Is it too much for an old lady to ask for her granddaughters to retract their claws, stand still, and look at me long enough to take one lousy picture? So they all walk over to the side of the house and look at her, standing kind of far apart from each other, but smiling.
So I love this whole scene right now. Flashbacks to the whole Roger and Phoebe thing. I didn't realize that it happened that early on, though,
Yeah.
because I thought that's why they got split. Or no, wait, I don't remember exactly why they split up. What their reasoning was in the first episode.
Yeah, I don't know that we ever find out exactly why they called off the engagement or like I have so many questions about what we kind of knew about the past and what happens in this episode in comparison that'll come
Hmm.
up like I feel like more later once we have more of the full picture.
Right.
But I mean, as far as this scene goes, I don't get why, like Phoebe's saying, like why Prue thinks that Phoebe wants to get with Roger so bad. Like,
Yeah.
we've seen Roger. I can't picture this at all.
Yeah, no, it's not a very Phoebe person. And I don't know why she has like such a strong feeling that her sister's like gonna go sleep with the guy that she's engaged to, and like I don't know, it's stupid.
Like, he doesn't even deserve to be with Prue, let alone with anyone else, too. Like,
I know.
but
Phoebe
I guess
Phoebe,
it's
I
one
don't
of
think she
those
has any interest.
things where, like, because I mean, some of the stuff we've seen from Prue and Roger later shows us that he was probably kind of like manipulative and possibly like emotionally abusive towards her. So maybe
Oh
she's like
yeah.
so in that mindset where she just like will believe anything he says and like not question it at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
It's
Um
very gross.
to think that Prue could have gotten manipulated like that, and she's our strong one.
It just shows that, like, anyone can be in an abusive relationship. Like, you don't have to, like, there's no determining factor for that. Like, really,
Right,
anybody can get
exactly.
involved in something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Also,
Um
poor Graham's just trying to get a picture, but also, like, it's so funny that when she's like to Phoebe, like, the other side is your good side, like, hilarious how
I,
much, like,
I know, like damn bitch. So mean. Yeah, but poor Grams. She just wants a
yeah.
picture. I love all the bickering between the siblings. It feels very realistic. And Graham's just like suffering through this. I feel so bad.
No, definitely. And, the whole retract their claws since the episode is about a cat.
I know. A little punny there. So then it cuts back to present day, and we're in the entryway, and we see little white orbs move them closer in the picture that they have framed of the three of them from that day on the entryway table. And then Prue walks out of the living room and Phoebe into the house with shoe boxes. And Phoebe starts telling her that she killed a warlock when Piper runs in and tells them that she did the same thing. Then Prue says that one also attacked her in the attic. Then Phoebe starts describing him bad teeth, funky clothes, way too easy to kill. And eventually they realize it was all the same warlock. And then he teleports in and says, "Care to try again?" And he floats Piper to above the stairway, and Phoebe stabs him with an umbrella, and he vanquishes again. Then Piper drops to the floor, and Prue runs over to help her up. And they wonder what he's up to and if he can be vanquished and like what the hell's going on,
Yes.
basically.
So this is really just them all kind of finding out about the warlock and establishing that whole moment.
Honestly, one of my favorite warlocks of the season again. I actually really
Really.
do like this guy. Yeah. I
You
like
know
the
what?
way he talks
Yeah.
and his energy. He like especially when we see him a little later at the cafe, I think that's what really got me. And we'll see that. I love it so much.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to agree with you. When we make our lists, he might come up on mine. So I'm going to say that this is
It's a
this is definitely a
possibility.
sleeper pick, but I like him.
Oh yeah, of course.
The one other thing I'll mention about this scene, I really love the way they're incorporating that photo, which obviously is the one we saw in the pilot where they were standing far apart and then uniting as the charmed ones
Mhm.
brought it together. So I liked them bringing that back again here.
Me too. Love a good recall.
Me too. So then we're in the attic, and the sisters are looking in the book, and Phoebe's singing. She's like, I've been working on a vanquish. And the pages start turning on their own, and it lands on a page about seances. And Piper's like, thanks, Graham. But then Phoebe's like, it's so weird that we listen to her more now than when she was alive. Then Prue notices what page it is, and Piper thinks it won't help because the warlock won't die. And Prue says Gramps must be confused and closes the book, but it immediately reopens. And Phoebe starts listing what they're going to need. So Piper goes over to the trunk and says that she wants to take the trunk, but Prue says no. And she finds something else of Graham's that she wants, but Prue tells her to focus. And so she goes over and they set up the ritual and begin chanting. White orbs appear, and we see the witch from earlier appear as a ghost. And I just want to say, like, why when they have other ghosts appear, they're the most like disgusting, hideous robes, but like when Graham's or like someone in the family appears, they have like a nice white dress on.
Yeah, like regular pretty outfits, yeah.
Like this looks like a 1904 like
Sleeping
nightgown,
gown,
like
yeah. Not cute.
not cute at all. So whatever. She asks what they called for her and then realizes they're the charmed ones, and they realize that she's also a witch. Prue says, we think that we're up against an evil that can't be killed. We've nixed him 4 times, but, and Phoebe says, and since you're the one who answered our call, the witch says, the spirits must think I know who you're up against. You say you've killed him 4 times. She says, yeah, and he just keeps coming back for more. It's like he, and she says, wants to die. And Piper asks if she knows him. She says, he was my familiar, a feline I called Shadow. He's a warlock now. What a familiar becomes when he betrays his witch. Prue says, that must be why we can't kill him. The whole 9 lives thing. And Piper thinks that they need to kill him 5 more times, but the witch tells them no. She says once a familiar becomes a warlock, it has until the next new moon to purge itself of its old life. If it succeeds, it becomes immortal. If it fails, it returns to its animal state for eternity. And Phoebe asks why he came to them, and Prue thinks they're the only ones strong enough to kill him. And Piper says, and he knew where to find us. What are we, like in the Warlock's Guide to San Francisco? And they realize they just have to not kill him for 2 more days because that's when the next new moon is. And Prue feels bad for how they're treating the witch, and she says that she's at peace with loved ones and mentions people being taken suddenly without a goodbye. And Prue says they're all too familiar with that. And they all look down, and the witch says, at its core, evil exists for one reason: to spread loss. Be careful not to lose each other. Take care, and blessed be. And she leaves, and Piper blows out the candle.
I love the whole blessed be thing that they always say.
It's
All the
so
witches.
cute. And I like her advice here, like very sweet, but also like they're pushing the lesson of the episode so far down our throats here. Like, be
I
careful
know.
not to lose each other. Like, don't move out, Piper.
Yeah, I know, like we get it. But I mean it still worked for me. It's all right.
Yeah.
Although also I want to say the part where it's like, Phoebe asking why he came to them and Prue being like, because we're the only ones strong enough to kill him. Like, ma'am, you threw a shoe at him and he died.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, this guy is not hard to kill.
No, a box cutter. A box cutter wouldn't even put you in the hospital. Like, you get a little stitch for that. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
A
you'd have to
shoe going through.
stab someone directly in their organ and they'd have to slowly bleed out. Like, you're not
Yeah,
just gonna die from getting stabbed like that.
none of it makes any sense. But that's okay.
Plot's sake.
Plot's sake.
But this whole familiar thing is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they're setting up this idea of familiars, which obviously in like witch lore comes up a lot. So I really like that. And it's interesting, this idea that betraying his witch made him become a warlock.
Yeah, no, I find that really interesting too, that like you said, that they're following this whole familiar lore and involving that into this story and incorporating that whole thing of like, oh, once he betrays, then he becomes a warlock and has all this time to shut off his old life to stay a warlock forever. Like I like it. Like it's a really neat idea, I think, that they have going on.
Yeah, and the whole 9 lives thing, of course, is cute because of that idea of cats have 9 lives.
Right.
The only other thing I think I'll mention with this scene is I like the opening and their little, like, sassiness with, like, Grams's ghost, like, reopening the book when they want to ignore her, like, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah,
I
and you know
also
Grams ain't gonna
liked
let that happen.
exactly. I also liked the way that Piper wants to bring something of Grams with her to her new place, though, Piper, you and this one-track mind you always got going on here.
Telling you. She's always like that.
Though she's not the only one. We've seen Prue do it, we've seen Phoebe do it, we've seen Leo do it.
Yeah, they all kind of do that. But Piper's the worst with it, I swear.
She might be the top offender.
Yeah. So then from there, we flash back to the attic, and Grams is there closing the window. And she says, "Damn wind keeps blowing out my candles. I'm sorry, Patty. I got cut off." And she relights the candle, and then Patty appears as a spirit. And she's talking about being worried about where the sisters are going. And Patty says it's just a phase. When their destiny's revealed, they'll come together. And she says, "But what if they don't? What if they never do? And what if the gift is too much for them to handle and I fear there may be only one option if I can't find a way to bring these girls together." And Patty thinks it's nonsense, but Grams tells her goodnight and blows out the candle.
So I have some questions here.
Me
The
too.
show has kind of made it seem like it's, like, not okay to just have ghosts hanging around
Impossible to
you.
just summon your like, even the other episode where they were getting married, like, they couldn't just summon their mom. She had to it was like a gift for them to see her, so the fact that they had her, like I was
Just
thinking the same
chilling,
thing,
like
yeah.
besties, hanging out every night,
I
apparently.
know,
But
like
meanwhile, Grabs was like, I can only be here for the ceremony, then I have to leave right away. But now all of a sudden, her and Patty could just like chill and have coffee together every night.
yeah, I know, like, it doesn't make any sense. It's not very consistent, and I wonder how consistent they'll stay with these things moving
Me
forward.
too. But yeah, that definitely stood out to me. But I think it's interesting, aside from that, error in continuity, that Grams is still seeking the advice of Patty and how to raise her daughters. Since, obviously Patty didn't really get to do that, but we're seeing that she still had an influence in the way that Grams was raising them, which I think is really cute.
Right, I like that, she is still taking her advice and discussing these things with her instead of just making decisions for the situation, which is not very Grams, like we see her here actually raising them a little differently than we would have expected. Because we've always seen her as the stubborn one, like this is what I say goes. But here she seems very like sweet, and just like delicate in this episode in the flashbacks that we've been seeing here, It's like a different
Yeah,
side of her, I feel like.
definitely. And I think we're also seeing this idea that's really interesting because everywhere we've seen her in the show, she's been so happy with the girls having their magic. So seeing her questioning it, because I think up until this point, we always thought the only reason that the sisters didn't get their powers till after she died was because of the Nicholas situation. But
Right.
here we're seeing that Grams wanted to permanently bind their powers. That's what they're discussing here and what we'll see her working on later.
Right. I remember because there were multiple times where they were like, well, Grams wanted to raise them as witches and had to because of the Nicholas thing stop it. And I feel like she always had that idea, but then once it actually came to and she started seeing them not getting along and how far apart they're and like the concerns started to show through a little more and she realized like maybe it's not the best idea anymore. So
Yeah.
it's not like typical for her character, like at least from what we've seen, but I mean, we are seeing it. She wants to try to get rid of their like ability to become the charmed ones.
Yeah. And I mean, it does make sense because we're also seeing throughout the episodes that clearly Grams has been sick, right?
Right.
So if she allows them to get their powers, she doesn't think that she'll be there to help them with it, which she thinks
Right.
also puts them in danger.
Exactly.
So then we cut to the kitchen in the present, and Phoebe walks into the room and it's dark, and she's like, who turned out the lights? And Shadow's there waiting for her, and they fight, and he just like lands on a knife and vanquishes.
Yeah.
And Phoebe picks up the knife and is like, uh oh. And Prue and Piper run in and ask what happened, and she says, I think I killed the warlock again. And they're like, Phoebe. She's like, well, I didn't mean to. It was a gut reaction. And Prue walks out of the room and they follow. Then they're in the dining room, and Prue's saying that she doesn't think he'll hurt them because he needs them. And if one dies, they wouldn't have the power of three or the strength to kill him. Phoebe's like, but we're assuming he's smart enough to know this. I mean, what if he isn't? And Prue says they have no choice. If they kill him 4 more times, he becomes more powerful than they can handle. Then Phoebe notices Piper's stuff on the table and asks if she's really doing it. She says, yeah, we have lived apart before. Prue says, our lives were apart, Piper. It's different now. I just think we all need to talk this through. That way we all know exactly what the consequences are for all of us. Then Kit meows because the show remembered that they have a cat. And Phoebe says, saved by the meow. You know, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to look at Kit quite in the same way, or get undressed in front of him for that matter. And like, Kit's a boy.
I know. I always thought Kit was a girl.
So did I. I'm pretty sure they've said she about Kit before. Like, I don't think I'm making that up.
No, they definitely have.
Like, I'm 90% sure that in the episode with Aviva, they refer to Kit as she.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right. I was thinking of the episode with the painting. Like, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure they referred to her as she in that one too.
but okay, Kit changed genders, I guess. And then Piper says that they're right and they should talk it through. Then Kit meows again and Piper walks to the front door.
All right. So here again with, them killing him, so they've only got 4 more chances. I like this whole idea. I mean, it's a little stupid the way that it kind of happened and the way that they keep doing it. Like, I feel like there are much more realistic ways of killing this guy, and they just keep doing like the most random things. And it's really funny.
And he like literally fell on the knife. Like it just happened to be pointed up on the ground and he like landed on it. Like it
I
was
know,
just
like
so
that,
ridiculous.
it didn't make any sense at all. But that's this episode for you. It's been having a lot of that going on.
A lot of like campiness going on here, like over the top, unrealistic kills.
Yeah. It's like a old shitty horror movie.
Yeah.
I love it though. Like, I think it's really funny. So
I
it's
do
definitely
too. No,
still
it's very
enjoyable to
entertaining. Yeah.
watch. Yeah.
And also, I mean, their plan here makes sense to me that they just have to not do anything because he can't hurt them. So I get what they're thinking there.
hmm
And then, the idea that they need to talk through this move, I think that that makes sense. And it's probably what they should have done from the beginning. Just have
Agreed.
like that real talk.
Yeah, it has to be about like, I mean, obviously her decision is her decision, but the fact of the matter is that it does affect all of the sisters, and that is something that they should discuss when it comes to like big life altering decisions like that, you know?
Yeah. And it's also like figuring out what the steps would be. Because,
hmm
like we heard in last episode, now that Leo and Piper are married, he's allowed to orb her. So, if there's an emergency, can't they just orb to wherever the other two sisters are?
Right. Yeah, they'd have to work out some kinks and talk about like what would happen in case of emergency, you know?
Exactly. And also, the funny part with Kit resurfacing out of nowhere because we haven't seen Kit literally since episode 2 of this season.
Yep.
And then, oh, like, I don't want to get undressed in front of Kit anymore. It was funny, thinking about
Yeah.
how Kit's probably their familiar, which makes total sense because we saw Kit first arrive. He was with another witch. And then when that witch died, he showed up at the manor.
Yeah, and had the charmed symbol on his collar already.
Yes.
Every time I watch this episode or think about it, I look at my cats like, like,
Bailey's
just
actually my
wondering.
familiar.
Oh my God, Bailey's a whale. I love him.
My big baby.
I know. I've
And for
never
those
seen.
listeners unaware, I have a very, very fat cat.
What is he, like 40 pounds?
No, he's 30 pounds.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was way off. A 30-pound cat. My heaviest cat weighs like 10, 11 pounds. He's
Yeah,
huge.
well, your cats are all skinny minis.
Cosmo's
Bailey's
pretty
a
big.
big boy.
Cosmo's pretty big.
Big
But
as
yeah,
Bailey, though? Bailey's really long, too. Like, he's not just fat, he's also long.
but he's also fat.
He is fat. I'm not saying he's not, but he's also like a big cat in general. Like, he's very long.
Yeah, I don't know. Bailey's just built different. Anyways, so then we cut again to a flashback, and we're on the front porch and it's morning time. Piper opens the door and Kit is outside, and she's like, "Ugh, why does this stupid cat keep hanging around?" And she picks Kit up and says to shoo. Then Prue walks outside, and Piper's like, "What did you want to talk about?" And Prue suggests they go for a walk, and she says hi to Kit. And then they start walking, and Prue asks her to be maid of honor, mentioning how it's not like she'd ask Phoebe. And then Prue's like, "I would love for both of my sisters to be my best friend, but clearly that's not the case. Maybe one day things will change, but..." And Piper says it's going to take more than time. "I mean, I'm happy for you, I am, and I know you have these big plans, but what about the rest of us? I mean, you move in with Roger, and I'm stuck here alone taking care of Grams, and Phoebe's out of control. What if there's an emergency? What if something happens?" And Prue says that she won't be far. And then Piper says, "I just think we should talk this through so we know what the consequences are." And she's like, "Okay, look, maybe a part of me is jealous because you've got this great guy and you're gonna have this beautiful wedding, and I'm just not very good with guys. Sometimes I think I'll never find true love." And then she bumps into someone and apologizes, and it's Leo, and they share like a little look, and then her and Prue keep walking, and he orbs away. Real quick, was Piper not literally engaged to Jeremy?
I don't think they were engaged, but I was pretty sure they were dating at this point. Because we get in the pilot that they'd been together for 6 months, and they met when Grams was in the hospital. So I'm assuming when Grams first got sick.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, this doesn't quite add up.
Yeah. No, it doesn't track. I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, wasn't she literally dating Jeremy right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently Piper did not have a boyfriend at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yeah, her calling Roger a great guy.
I know. Uh,
Where?
let's think about this. And I love that we're getting back to the whole issues between Prue and Phoebe, like the original distance that they always had between each other that we got from the start of the show, and see the development to now. And it really is a big difference.
Yeah,
Also, why did
definitely.
Leo just like walk by and then orb out like to look at them? It was like really weird.
Yeah, no, literally was the most like unnecessary
Yeah.
moment. It was just to show us that like Piper and Leo are soulmates, but like we know this.
Yeah, this is not news.
It was so unnecessary. Also, like Kit hanging around, I like get what the show's trying to do with that, but like she had a whole other owner at this point.
I know. Yeah, a lot of this does not add up.
Yeah.
But it sucks because I feel like we're criticizing so much, but I really do find this whole episode very entertaining.
No, it's here's the thing, right? This is one of those episodes that I really enjoy,
Yeah.
but there's just so many things in it that don't add up. And I
Yeah, there's
think
a
it
lot of
every time I watch it,
inconsistencies.
not even doing a close watch like this. Like I
Yeah,
always notice these things.
me too. I don't know, dude.
These are some writer errors. Like they really should have been paying closer attention to what they've done in the past.
I know.
But I do like to give this scene a positive. I like the way they're talking to each other. I like the way that Prue kind of has this hope that one day she'll be able to connect with Phoebe. I like that Piper's expressing her worries about, Phoebe being out of control and Graham still being sick because after all, they did move back in so they could take care of Graham's together. And now it seems like all of that responsibility is going to fall onto Piper. So it makes sense that she's concerned about this and wants to talk about the consequences, like how in the present day, they all want to talk about the consequences of Piper moving out.
Right. There's a lot of like connections here and foreshadowing and things like that. And I do like the way that they're kind of slipping those things into each flashback.
Yeah. And also, I mean, here talking about Prue planning this beautiful wedding. I think a couple episodes ago when we were talking about how Prue was feeling with Piper's wedding, about how, I'm the oldest, I'm supposed to get married first. I totally forgot about Prue's engagement to Roger and that she had been planning a wedding before season
Me
one.
too. Me too. It didn't even occur to me.
Yeah, so that, kind of like loss that Prue's gonna have. I mean, as much as we hate Roger, it still sucks that she had to call off an engagement.
Yeah. A whole engagement after having all these plans and it being ready, and her grandma just died. Like,
Yeah.
messy.
So then we're at this little outside cafe in the present, and the sisters are at a table, and Piper starts saying how they can still hang out after she moves, and she doesn't want people to think she's old and married and not fun anymore. And Prue says, "You've never been fun, Piper." She says, "I have always been fun, Prue. I am just Mrs. Fun now." And Prue laughs and says, "The life changes from the move will work themselves out. It's the supernatural ones that we're concerned about." Piper says, "But we get attacked separately all the time, like yesterday, and we just came together and sorted it out then." And that's when the warlock appears at the table next to them and he says, "You girls are getting harder and harder to find. I was beginning to think you were trying to avoid me." And Prue says, "Wow, you've been thinking? That's a big step for a warlock." "Oh, I'm sorry. That was awfully catty of me, wasn't it?" He's like, "Is this the part where I'm supposed to go, 'Ooh, they did research,' and run away?" And Phoebe says, "Might be a good idea." He says, "Or what? You'll kill me?" And Piper says, "No, actually, we'll do worse. We won't touch you." And he gets up and grabs this woman who's walking by and stabs her. And Piper freezes the place and runs over and stabs him, so he vanquishes. And the sisters rush to the woman as the place unfreezes, and Prue starts yelling for someone to call 911.
See, this was the scene where I saw him and I was like, I fucking love this guy. I don't know
He's
why, but
so
he
sassy.
he yeah, he kind of killed it with this one, with like the sass and the confidence, like such the cocky warlock that, like, we love to see sometimes. And I don't know, it definitely works for me, him being like, "Ooh, we did research, like, I don't care," and then being like, "Yeah, well, you guys are dumb because I'm just gonna kill somebody else then."
Yeah. I think they're
um
forgetting that they're in a very public place and warlocks don't care about hurting innocents. In fact, they love it.
exactly. I mean, funny how nobody saw him flash in.
Yeah, just public magic use. No one
Yes.
saw him vanish after stabbing the woman,
Yeah,
just casual things.
of course. It all makes sense.
But I do
Um
like the teasing at the beginning between the sisters. The "you've never been fun" Piper was really funny. Like,
I I love that too. Little sister moments of them just sitting out to lunch. I love when we get things like that between them.
yeah, and I do understand Piper's viewpoint that, they do get attacked separately and they figure it out later. So, as much as like the life changes of them moving out would be able to work out eventually, the moving out changes as far as the supernatural goes
Hmm.
probably could be worked out too. It's just something, like we said, they need to discuss.
Right. So now back at the manor in the kitchen, Phoebe's at the table and Prue and Piper are by the counter. Piper is adding ingredients to a pot, and Phoebe says, "That girl, there's just no reason. I got used to there being a reason, an explanation." But she didn't even, Prue cuts her off and says, "Stand a chance." "But there was a reason, Phoebes. He was sending a message." And she says, "So what? He just keeps killing until we kill him?" Piper says, "Which is exactly what he wants." And Prue says, "Exactly what we can't do." Then Prue asks if Piper's working on a potion, and she's like, "No, I'm just keeping my hands busy. It's something Gramps taught me, actually, to improvise. But all I've come up with is mud." And then Phoebe says, "So how do we kill a warlock we know we shouldn't be killing?" And Prue's like, "Well, we've only got 3 more chances to figure that out." And then Piper picks up this white rose.
So in that one, they're reaching way too hard to make the like drop cut match to the next scene. That's all I'll say about that white rose.
I know there's so unnecessary to the plot at all.
Yeah.
But, whatever, I guess. Again, I think this is mostly just plot, just them being like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do? Like, can't kill him. We're stuck. We're screwed, guys." You know,
Yeah,
how they
no,
always
this
have a scene
scene
like that.
literally felt so unnecessary to me. I think the
Yeah,
only reason they wanted to include it was so she could be like, "Oh, Gramps taught me to improvise," so that we could have the next scene where we see Piper,
exactly.
like
Yeah.
Gramps teaching it to her. So then we flash back and we're still in the manor in the kitchen, and Gramps drops a flower into a pot, and Piper walks in saying that she's going to finish the brownies. And Gramps says, "Well, I'm afraid that Prue's beaten you to it, but I've got a backup." And she says they could make a cake. And then Piper asks what she's making, and she says, "Oh, just keeping my hands busy." Then Phoebe walks in and starts to grab the keys. And Gramps asks if she wants to make a cake with them, but Phoebe says that she's going out. And Piper starts helping Grams to put things in, and Grams smiles and asks how she knew what to add. And she talks about balancing the different ingredients. And Graham says, "Piper, you were born for this, literally. Why do you insist on wasting your talents behind some counter at a bank?" She says, "Because my talents don't come with health benefits, Grams. Prue's getting married, and Phoebe, somebody has to be practical." And she says, "Not at the expense of your dreams." She says, "No, at the expense of losing this house and not being able to pay your hospital bills. I'm sorry if I'm disappointing you." And they hug. And she says, "You could never do that." She says, "I'm just doing what I have to do," and leaves. Then Graham says, "So am I." And she puts the stuff from the pot into a bottle and says, "My sweet girls, you're just not ready. I've got to stop you from becoming."
Thing that didn't make too much sense, as adorable as I thought this scene was, Gramps was obviously making this potion to bind their powers, and Piper comes over and just starts adding, like, shit into the pot, thinking that it's, like, a meal or something. I'm a little confused here, and then she still uses it as the potion.
I think it's supposed to show us that, like, instinctually, like, Piper was always, like, inclined towards making magical recipes. And so, like, instinctively, she just knew what to put in.
But that doesn't make any sense at all.
I don't
She
know.
she would have not even the slightest clue what to put in.
Well, because Piper's really good with, like, cooking and stuff. And she was talking about, like, balancing the flavors in the recipe.
Right, but she doesn't even know what they're cooking.
Yeah, but I guess she sees what Graham's already put in. I don't know. I
She
don't know.
see Yeah, but it's not, I get it, you have to balance this shit in if you're actually cooking something, but Graham's being like if I was Graham's, I'd be like, "Dude, stop. You're fucking up my potion." Like you don't even know what you're doing. Like it's not it would make sense if she was cooking something and Piper did that, but she was doing a potion and Piper's just adding random ingredients. Like the potion's not going to turn out the same, right?
Yeah, and how many times have we seen the sisters, like, mess up and have to follow recipes exactly and look at them? Like, it's not like we've never seen Piper before, like, instinctively know what to put into a potion.
Exactly, like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what they were trying to, like, I guess they were trying to show her about, the whole cooking thing and how she became a chef and all that, but, I mean, and it was a really cute moment to have, like, "Oh, Grams was the one who taught me," which is very sweet, and, like, after Phoebe just giving them, like, a cold stare, and Piper just feeling bad and wanting to be there for Grams, like, that was a really cute moment, don't get me wrong, but that one thing just made no sense.
I think I get what the show was trying to do, but I get that it didn't make sense.
Yeah. Another thing, I feel like like, even when poor Piper is like, "I'm sorry if I'm disappointing you," it's like the cutest thing ever to me because we see this Piper that very much was season 1 Piper, and the character that she is, where she's the middleman, the mediator, the more like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings kind of girl. And now we see her a lot more developed and doesn't act as strongly on those emotions. She's like grown into herself so much since she used to act like that, you know?
Mhm.
It's crazy. They're like bringing back all the qualities that we slowly changed throughout the seasons. And it's funny to like see them compared.
Yeah, and it's also really interesting to see the way that both Prue and Piper have sacrificed. I mean, we saw early on that Prue went into the career she went into to support the family, and Piper did the same thing before in season 1, deciding to take that risk once Grams wasn't sick and she didn't have to take care of her anymore to actually follow her passion of being a chef.
Right, exactly. we left off on Graham saying, "I've got to stop you from becoming." And then it cuts to the present where Shadow is sitting on the couch and says, "The charmed ones." And then they walk in and he says, "What does a fellow have to do to get killed around here?" And Prue says, "Not gonna happen." And then he threatens to sever a head, and Piper freezes him and thinks that they can just keep on doing that until midnight. But he starts fighting through it, and he says that he'll just keep getting better at that. And he walks to the front door and tells them time is wasting and he'll keep killing. Says, "How many more people have to die before you do what I ask?" And Prue says, "None." And she moves a knife from the table into him, and he vanquishes again. And Prue's like, "I'm sorry, and Piper's like, "You had to." And Phoebe says, "I would have done it first, but you beat me to it." And she's like, "Alrighty, well, he's only got 2 more lives left." And Piper says, "And we've only got one option." And they know that they need to go back to the book.
So again, I like his sassiness. I like his confidence. I like how they can't really come up with a plan here because what they originally thought of just, first not killing him wasn't going to work. Now trying to freeze him isn't going to work. They realize that he is powerful and they are going to have to figure out something else.
Right. He's just like progressively getting stronger as he sheds these lives, it seems
Yeah,
like.
exactly.
And it's working really well for me. And seeing the sisters like just so defeated right now, like not having any idea what to do. It's pretty cool, and it fits in with his cockiness. Like it's working for me, him knowing that he can just do whatever the fuck he wants, basically.
Exactly. And I also like the shift from like when Phoebe killed him earlier and they were all like Phoebe, but now that like he's killed an innocent, they're like, nope, I would have done it too. Like,
Yeah, it switched up quick.
yeah. So then we go to a flashback in the attic, and Grams is flipping through the book using her telekinesis. And Patty's like, "Why now, mother?" She says, "We both know why. We're just not willing to say it. I'm not well, Patty. When I die, the girls will receive their powers. I have to stop that from happening." Patty says, "But it's their destiny. It's what they're meant to be." She says, "Who are we to decide that they're meant to be witches?" She says, "Who are we to decide that they're not? This isn't your choice to make." She says, "But the girls are mine to protect." And she grabs her chest in pain, but says she's fine. She's like, "Patty, they're not ready. Do you really want me to put them directly in harm's way?" And she looks at her. And Graham says goodnight and blows out the candle, and Patty teleports out. Then she closes the book and moves it to the trunk. She walks over to the table and grabs the potion bottle, like breathing really heavy, and she walks out of the room, closing the door behind her. Then in the hallway, she's walking down the stairs and grabs her chest and drops the potion, then falls down the stairs. And Piper runs over to her and starts calling for Prue and Phoebe, and both of them run over and they're all kneeling over Grams, like super concerned and upset.
Yeah. So this was Grams's death scene. Oh my god. The part of falling down the stairs where like the guy playing her like holds on to his head to keep the wig from falling off. And like the size comparison difference was like really, really funny. Like that stunt double.
Yeah, no, it was not a good stunt double. It was not a good fall. Like, we're supposed to be concerned, but it's like hilarious.
Yeah, it was actually really funny. That was not
Like,
great at
even
all.
reading it, I'm trying not to laugh. I'm like, an old woman just fell down the stairs and died. This isn't funny, but like,
But just knowing what it's like, how it looked, like if you guys
yeah.
saw that, it was so funny.
And then I see the girls upset, and I'm like, but what just happened is so fucking funny.
Yeah. Poor Grams, R.I.P.
R.I.P. to Grubs.
Even though you've been gone for us.
No, literally. And I mean, obviously, this is destiny interfering, right? The
Mm-hmm.
powers that be had to stop her from binding their powers, so she had to die in this moment.
Right. Before
But
she could
also,
take them away.
like, again, this kind of makes me question so many things about the timeline because, like, so then obviously Piper did already meet Jeremy, but also, like, how long before, like, because they make it seem like to me, and I mean, we'll find out in a few scenes. I guess I'm bringing this up too early, but like, Phoebe leaves for New York shortly after this. But this was also like 6 months before the pilot. So like was Phoebe only in New York for like a month? And if so, how did she even have time to have a whole relationship with Clay that seemed like it lasted like a year? Like I just have so
Wait,
many
a
questions.
month? She was there for 6.
Yeah, but it seems like way too quick.
Yeah. It does seem a little quick for her to have had a whole relationship with him, but
And like
I
three
mean,
different jobs and all these experiences.
yeah, but she also seems like we know Phoebe, she's a very fast-paced kind of person, or at least used to be. Again, like the timeline with Jeremy, the timeline with New York doesn't quite add up, but I don't know. I mean, I get why they had her die now in this time for the whole, can't bind their powers thing. And I like that we're going to see this kind of connect later on in the episode.
Yeah. And I mean, I do like the conversation between her and Patty. I like the way that she's being really realistic about her situation and her health, and she's
Hmm.
showing concern for the girls and that they're really just not ready for this destiny, and then that destiny intervening. Because, like Patty said, it's what they're meant to be. And Grams is saying they can't make that decision, but then fate makes that decision for them, which is really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I do like that, she's still discussing these things with her, and even though knows that she's going to do whatever the hell she has to do, she just wants to make sure that she's on the same page.
Yeah.
So now back in the attic, present day, Shadow gets stabbed by a coat rack and vanquishes, and Prue says, well, that's number 8. And Piper says, one life to live. Then Phoebe says, I know life isn't fair, but this sucks. And Piper starts talking about him leaving a stain on the carpet, and Phoebe's like, no, death isn't brief, it's permanent. And this guy gets to cheat it not once, but 9 times. And then Piper says, yeah, cheaters aren't supposed to prosper. And Prue's like, if he had any idea what death was really like, the real thing, not the abridged version, he wouldn't be so hot under the collar to do it again. And then Phoebe's like, what if we showed him? And Piper asks what she means. And she's like, well, every time he dies, he feels pain, right? Well, what if somehow we could catch him in that second, in the one moment where he actually feels the pain, and then magnify it 9 times? And Piper says then he would feel the pain of 9 deaths, and it actually might be enough to kill him. I like it. And Prue says that they've got one shot and asks if there's any other ideas, and no one's got any, so she's like, let's do it. Okay. Interesting take and like way to vanquish him. Because I feel like no matter what, the death is like supposed to be what saves him, so I don't know how doing this would kind of. But I mean, I guess they had to think of something.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, this super like amplified death, I
Could
don't
be
know that it
enough.
makes sense.
Yeah, but
Plot's sake, it
maybe,
does.
yeah, for plot's sake. Like, I get the idea they're going with, but it doesn't quite make a lot of sense. But I get them, like, using full strength as opposed to just easy kills, maybe is like it's too far gone, like, to come back again. I don't know.
Yeah. But it's weird because, they brought up that whole point of them as the charmed ones being the only ones capable of killing him.
Hmm.
Like, it would make sense if, all these other like little kills did nothing and then like this power of 3 kill was what actually could kill him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Again, plot's sake.
Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, whatever. We're gonna go with it.
Also, I just love the little moment of like, yeah, I know he left a stain on the carpet. So.
I know, like Piper, no one cares about that.
So then we go to a flashback and we're in the hallway, and Piper picks up the potion bottle from the stairs and she's crying. And Prue walks over and asks if she's okay. And she sits down and says, I'm not really. I don't know how we're supposed to deal with this, Prue. I mean, it's not just losing her, it's the funeral arrangements and the doctors and the lawyers, and there's nobody left to help us. And Prue walks up and says, for what it's worth, the service today, it was really beautiful. And Piper nods and says she would have liked what you said. She says, thanks. I know this is going to sound strange, but do you think she heard? And Piper says, I think she did. And Prue puts her hands on Piper's arms.
Oh. Holly Marie Combs plays emotion very well too, and this was just really sad.
It was a really touching scene.
Yeah.
Though the one thing I'm questioning, like if the funeral happened, it's been a couple days, so why
Mhm.
was the potion bottle still just on the floor?
I, I don't know. Maybe they were too like traumatized to go back on the stairs. Like I don't. Maybe she already had made a. No, that wouldn't know. But I don't know. Jess, there's a lot here that just I cannot explain. You know.
Yeah.
But I mean, the scene is touching at least. I'll give it
It
that.
is. It
Yeah.
is.
I don't have too much to say though, except that like you said, it's very touching and I love seeing kind of those moments like that between Prue and Piper and kind of seeing that even here, like Prue's not the one crying because, she doesn't do that so much. Like it all fit in with her character at least, you know?
Yeah, it's very much that taking care of Piper who's really struggling.
So then, still in the flashback, in the parlor now, Phoebe is sitting on the couch, and Prue and Piper walk down the stairs. Then Piper says, I'd still like to know what she was doing up there. And Phoebe says, up where? And Prue's like, Piper thinks that Grams was up in the attic before she died. And Phoebe's like, it's not possible. She always told us that the attic was sealed off. And Piper says, yeah, well, then what was she doing coming down those stairs? Phoebe says, I think the more important question is, what are we doing? Prue says, what do you mean? And Phoebe says, I mean precisely what Grams was always concerned about, our future. The only reason we're all still here, still together, is because of her. And now, Prue, you've already got one foot out the door, and Piper, I know you don't want to bunk with me any longer than you have to, so let's face it, she was the glue. And Piper says that she'll go make dinner and they can talk about it while they eat. But Prue says actually she's supposed to spend the night with Roger. And then Phoebe says that she's going away. I'm not sure what my future holds, but I know it's not in San Francisco. And she starts grabbing her jacket and saying that she knows she's just trouble and is going to go to New York and see how that goes. And she says, whatever my destiny may be, I might find it there. And then Piper asks her about school, and she says that it'll be there if she decides to come back. And she thinks that they can all find their purpose on their own. And she leaves, and Prue does too, and Piper's just standing there crying.
So, my first question is Phoebe just leaving with no clothes, no bags, nothing, just her jacket and the
No,
clothes she's wearing?
no car, nothing at all. So it seems like, yeah,
Like, when I think I'm gonna move to a new city, I'm just like, I don't need clothes, I don't need a toothbrush, I don't need anything.
no. She's a wanderer, she's a drifter. You don't need anything. She
Also,
survive
like,
off the lands.
the fact that apparently their grandmother's funeral was this same day, and Prue's like, I'm actually going to hang out with Roger. And
Y-
Phoebe's like, I'm going to New York. And Piper's just like, the fuck?
Yeah, like, you guys don't want to mourn with me, or like poor Piper is the only one handling this like respectfully, like
No, literally.
realistically.
And the way she is trying to like be the new glue to the family, like how Phoebe says that Grams was the glue, like Piper's like, why don't I make dinner? We can talk, we can figure out what we want to do. And they're just like, no.
Yeah, she's trying to take over that role, and this is probably where she becomes even more so the middleman, trying to keep things situated between them.
Yeah, exactly. Also, kind of bringing us back to that idea that they always thought that the attic couldn't be opened and there was
Mhm.
nothing up there like we saw in the pilot. So that worked for me.
Worked for me too.
Though, again, I feel like Grams was going up there a lot. So how did they never notice?
I don't know. Didn't make a lot of sense here either.
But yeah, interesting that, there's this talk of, whatever my destiny may be, I might find it in New York. No, bitch, you're going to find it when you come back to San Francisco in 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Give
But
it
apparently, you're going
six
to live a
months.
very busy life in the next 6 months, Phoebe. So
Oh yeah, had a lot going on for you.
you're going to look for your dad and not be able to find him. You're going to have a whole relationship with Clay. You're going to have
Yeah.
like 7 different jobs.
A whole new life.
Yeah, things are
Crazy.
going to move really quick.
Yeah, got a lot going on. Lots to look forward to, Phoebes.
So then we're in the manor in the parlor, and it's present day at nighttime. Phoebe comes down the stairs with the spell, and Piper has a potion, and Prue has a sharp object. Piper asks how confident they are about the plan, and Phoebe says, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being we whoop ass, 1 being he laughs at us while we're on fire and naked, and Piper's like, maybe you should lie to me. And the doors burst open, and Shadow's there, and he's like, hello, ladies. And they stand together, and he's trying to make small talk, but they're not about it. And Prue clears her throat, and he's like, wait a minute, you've got something up your sleeve. And Phoebe's like, hello, sleeveless. And he's like, the moment that I gain immortality, I'm coming back here to mangle your pretty little faces. And Piper says, do you want to die or not? And he holds his arms up and is like, do it. And Prue throws the pointy thing. Piper freezes him, then throws the potion, and they start saying the spell. Then these little, 8 black, ghosty things start floating around him and go into him, and he explodes into flames. And Phoebe says, ninth time's the charm. That was definitely different. He's gone for good. Piper says, and yet somehow we're still here, still together. Phoebe says, not for long. Is there anything special you want to do on your last night here? And she says she wants a couple minutes alone, so Prue and Phoebe go upstairs. And Piper walks over past the picture of the 3 of them and sits by the box. And she picks up the potion bottle and finds a piece of paper in it and realizes what it is.
So this vanquish, I mean, it felt good, even though, like we said, it didn't make the most sense. It worked for me. I liked him trying to come in and banter again, and them just being like, "Let's get this over with," and it worked out well. Wrapped up that little plot, and then I like that she's holding the potion bottle that kind of we've been, intertwining with the flashback, and it's gonna help us with our little subplot we got going on too.
Exactly. Also, really interesting that it's Piper's last night and her sisters want to spend time with her, and she's just like, no.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's very like Phoebe just abruptly leaving to New York. It gives me the same
just
vibe.
out the door. Yeah, she's been spending too much time with her sisters. So now we are in the driveway and it's morning time, and Leo is putting boxes into Piper's car, and she runs up and he says, is everything okay? And she's like, am I that obvious? And he says, no, I'm just incredibly perceptive. And they sit down together, and she tells him that something doesn't feel right. She says, I know this step has to happen, and I want it to happen. It's just that when Prue, Phoebe, and I moved back in together, it made us sisters again. And I don't think we're ready to test that yet. And then there's this, and she hands him the piece of paper, and she says, I think we both know what those ingredients would do to us. And the fact that Grams was willing to keep us from being witches to keep us together, well, that should mean something, shouldn't it? And then says, are you going to hate me? And he says, not if we can hire movers to move everything back in. And then they hug. They're so freaking cute.
They are. And
They
the
really
movers
are.
joke is funny, but also let's be for real, your stuff is in the driveway.
Yeah, I know. You can you can handle that. But I like that, like I said, the potion bottle that we're using in the flashbacks became helpful for our subplot, and that Piper decided to stay home for a little longer. I think that it's very cute.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me. I mean, I feel like all her nervousness and everything throughout the episode shows that she wasn't ready to move out. She was
Yeah.
doing it because it felt like it was what she was supposed to do.
Yeah. I think in the beginning she did feel very much let's just get out of here, And then as soon as it became a real thing, it started to slowly hit her more and more what she was actually agreeing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, Leo, the supporting husband that we know and love.
Yeah, no, I really love Leo in this scene. I mean, we've seen him be so understanding of so many of Piper's struggles before. And I think ultimately Leo didn't really mind being in the manor
Yeah,
or being somewhere else. He just wants to be with Piper.
exactly.
So then we're in the living room and it's full of boxes. And Piper walks in and Prue asks if they can talk to her and that it's important. Phoebe says, well, we're more than excited that you and Leo decided to move back in. we sort of have to ask you to move back out again. And Prue says, of your room and into mine. I mean, it is twice as big and you are twice the people. And Piper's like, that would be great, and hugs her. And Phoebe says she deserves a hug too, because she's moving all of her stuff to the other bathroom so that Piper and Leo can have that one to themselves too. And she wraps her arms around both of them, and Prue says, it'll be just like having your own place. Phoebe says, yeah, only with your sisters right down the hall. Prue says, I mean, I know that we can't be together forever. And Piper says, but it feels good that forever isn't today. And they all are all cuddly with each other on the couch, and then we flash up to the attic and see the book close and the triquetra glow.
I absolutely love this scene. I think it's so adorable, so sisterly. It really shows like the love they have for each other and how much they just I mean, the unhealthy separation anxiety that they all have is so cute to me. But I do love it. It makes me really happy for them. I'm glad Piper's staying a little longer. I think it would just be a bit much for us to have that happening right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
And I
glad they're
like
all on
that
the
they're
same page
making
about
these
it.
moves to make it more of a home to Piper and Leo, who
Mhm.
obviously are newly married, want more space. So I like that the sisters are willing to work with her to make her feel more comfortable.
Right. I love that too. It's very sweet. All
Final
right.
thoughts on the episode?
As much as we had a lot of criticism and a lot of inconsistencies, I really do find this to be a very entertaining episode. I always love it. I love when we have Grams and get to see past experiences for the sisters. I like this little subplot with Piper and Leo, and like I said, I loved our bad guy. It all, was very fun to me, and I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I liked having an episode where Piper was the focus. We haven't had one in a while. Even
Hmm.
her wedding episode, Prue was the focus of that episode.
Yeah,
So I liked having that. I enjoyed the villain. I don't feel like we pushed forward many season long plots, but I did enjoy it. And I liked getting these little bits of backstory, even if all of them didn't quite add up.
agreed. Exactly.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you want to reach out to us or follow us on social media, we're on Instagram and TikTok at rewitched_pod. Or you can send us an email to rewitched.pod@gmail.com. Also, if you would like to subscribe to our Patreon, we have several monthly tiers available at patreon.com/rewitchedpodcast. Either way, we appreciate you listening and hope you'll join us back next time for Season 3, Episode 18, San Francisco.